So love who you love, love don't care anyhow. It don't care if you're black or white. Don't care if you're young or old. Love don't care if you're rich or poor. And you need somebody to hold.
What it do? What it do? All right.
Maybe.
I'm the black guy.
And I, of course, am still, but a little bit more tan, the white guy.
And of course, the show is black, white, left, right. And of course, I'm on the left. And
Yeah, I'm on the right most of the time. Sometimes the right pisses me off, but the left pisses me off a lot of times. But anyway, go ahead, bro.
right on, right on. This is show number 2. All right.
Yep.
Now, the first show, I think the first show went well. We got a great response. A lot of the viewers and listeners, man, really had a lot of positive feedback for us. What kind of feedback did you get on your end?
A lot of people said that they didn't feel like it dragged on. They thought that the subject matter that we picked was good. What I hope is people will learn something, even if it's not necessarily some race thing. You know, like I didn't know black people did this or white people, but sometimes they'll learn things. But I think in the end, all of it was positive, and I really got a lot more people that joined the podcast and watched than I thought would, especially for our first time out. So thank you all again for doing that. Hopefully you'll come back and give us another chance, and you'll enjoy today's show. We're trying to pick subjects that you'll see that fit the theme of the show. So with that said, Alonzo is going to be picking today's subjects for the most part.
But
so
you know what?
I'm curious where we're going on this.
But before we even get started, I got a very important question for you, man. All right,
What's
I got
that?
a very important question for you because I'm looking at your hat. I see the red, white, and green. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you remember last week's show or the week before last, you were going somewhere. All right.
Yeah.
So the place that you went to, all right. First and foremost, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. All right.
Yep.
All right. How was it spending a week or so or 10 days or however you were gone on the Gulf of America? How was it?
Yeah. You know, our room was overlooking the Gulf. It's Cancun. I mean, it's the hotel district right there on Kickoff. That's the big boulevard it runs up that has all the big resorts. I'm a member of Palace Resorts, so I've gone the last 3 years in a row. I highly recommend Palace Resorts. Alonzo, maybe we can go. I think you'd love it. Everything's inclusive. The service is second to none. I would put it up against any hotels and resorts in America, except it's just more affordable. Beautiful location. The weather was great. I can't complain. Props to the people of the Palace Resorts. They really took care of us. I think Sun Palace is where we stayed. Just got some kind of big award for their service, and so
did you
putting on a demonstration of how it's done in Mexico. And it's, like I said, it's a very, very highly Americanized tourist area. I sent you pictures where they do have
with the
they have armed guards walking along the beach, which is a little awkward, but in some weird way. And they took pictures with us. It is a little unsettling that they might have to have that, but I felt safe there and everything else. It's funny you call it the Gulf of America, but it's beautiful.
Let me ask you this. How did it feel to be the first American to stick his toe in the Gulf of America? You made history. How did it feel? Was the water nice and cold?
Man, it felt like freedom. That's all I can say, man. I hope I can dip my toe in there again before the year's out. Might be head back there again. So it certainly felt better than the cold ice here, although it was nice seeing some snow in Middle Georgia. A lot of people posted pictures. I know Atlanta got some. Thankfully, I got back and landed before all that mess hit. So, I didn't have any issues. But yeah, man, it was a blast. And so props to Palace Resorts. Highly recommend them. Yep.
All right, man. Well, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you had a great time there in Mexico. Yep. They let you across the border with no delay, with no.
Oh, I went legally. And it wasn't. You got to show your documents. You don't just show up, man. You got to go through all the. That's the airport there. It's a little different. A little different than going through a. Yeah.
What you doing here? That's just fucked up. Hey, homeboy, gringo.
Yeah. Nah, no issues, man. It was nice.
Estoy nuevo hombre. Okay.
What you got on tap for us?
All right.
Yeah.
A lot going on in the world, especially this week. We know what happened on Monday and everything. A lot of things happened. Some good to some people, some bad to some others. Some people are
Right.
indifferent to it. But
Yep.
I'm not going to go down that road. I know which road everybody wants me to go down. All right, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to go down that road. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it at a positive level. All right.
Okay, good.
All right. So um, as we all know, January 20th was a holiday, a national holiday, Martin Luther
Yep.
King Jr.'s birthday. All right.
Yep.
And I think some people, myself included, feel a little bit indifferent about this holiday because there's some anger involved. All right. And that anger comes from the realization that there was a time here in America where Martin Luther King was the most liked person by a certain side, a certain faction, or a certain sect of people in the
Yep.
United States. But over time, that sentiment has changed to where now he is a beloved figure pretty much by all sides. We know not everybody. There's still some folks out
Right. Right.
there who have some antiquated thoughts. So my
Right.
question for you, since you're a white guy, since you're the white guy
Right.
on the right side, explain from your perspective, all right, the relationship that white people have now with Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, I can speak for me. I don't always like to say that I represent all white people. It clearly, just like most things, a lot of time our opinions are formed by our upbringing or, how you are taught in school, the things that are around you. I suppose if I went to school and they told us that he was Hitler or he was some communist dirtbag, then that's what I would believe probably. So I think I might be a little unique in some ways than the average person in that, you try to form your own opinions by reading and learning. But I would say that, well, you're talking about it. I don't have any polls in front of me, but I imagine that he's vastly positive opinion of King. I liked a lot of things about him from a Christian standpoint and from a human standpoint. I have made no secret, that I'm pretty. I don't know that I'm so much Republican as I just am anti-communist. And I think a lot of the things that were levied at him back in the day, besides him being black, which there was things being levied at him just simply because of his race and wanting to integrate and all that. The government itself came after him. Hoover and the administration under Kennedy went after him. Thinking he was communist or he was going to be being used by the Communist Party to advance communism. A lot of times when you have factions that are malcontented or they
Marginalized.
feel like, yeah, marginalized, malcontented, they've been beaten up. So that's communism loves to put itself into those things. You'll find that a lot of times, even though you have groups that they don't really believe in much else, but they are all disparaged, will end up like almost like fingers of a communist fist. They'll work together, even though a lot of times their purposes or the reasons that they're joining forces are totally different. I think that, like most white Americans, I think I can say this pretty easily that I would say 80-90%, have a favorable view of King, and it's because
Why?
of the surface. It's the
Why?
surface stuff. It's the surface stuff that people hear. The whole idea that we should be beyond race, that human beings should be judged by their actions, the things that they do, their character. That I don't think that anybody should be against that. I mean, we can go into reasons why I maybe disagreed with King, but they weren't because of his color.
Well, in
Um,
1968, it was. Well, in the 60s, it was mostly because of his color, because of segregation, Jim Crow, and segregation and Jim Crow, and white supremacy. That was the order of the day back when he was still alive and fighting for his cause. Now, I know this is impossible to do, but if
right,
you could
but
transplant yourself back to 1965, do you think you would have the same views in regards to Dr. Martin Luther King that you have right now?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
My mom grew up in South Carolina, very rural South Carolina. In fact, my dad told me some stories because he was from up north. He met my mom in
Yankee
Shaw.
man.
He was
Oh
well,
wow.
Jurgelovich, crazy last name. He was stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, and they met. Probably dancing or something. I wasn't entirely planned, but my mom lived in a pretty rural farming community, and I can tell you for a fact, I've seen when I was growing up at very, very young age, there wasn't is it much
Tolerant.
integration. Yeah, I mean, I'm 50 in my 50s now. I'm talking back, when I was, less than 10 years old. So you're
Yeah.
talking a while back.
Yeah.
I suppose if I grew up there under that in the 60s, then most of what we would think of as just outright racism, outright hate, or outright
Bigotry.
marginalizing of was in the South. I mean, it's not like it was only there, but certain states clearly heavily and the black population was down there. So
Georgia.
I would
Florida.
say
Bama.
easily most white Americans, and I would think a lot of black Americans would have favorable views of him. But if, obviously back then, I'd have to look up a poll, but I would say maybe less than 40%, 30% had a favorable view. In fact, it actually went down for a little while once he started getting into these marches and things and becoming vocal. Bottom line is, if you're asking me if I would have had different views then, I think it's a good thing to say to you that it's different now, but it's impossible for me to tell you. I will say this, and this is the part of that I like about him, the Christian side of it, or the religious side of it. Sadly, there were people who went to church and got on their knees and talked Jesus and all this, but they certainly were racist. They certainly, were not completely following the tenets
Hypocrites.
of their religion. But in general, without religious people and without people with good hearts and God loving people, I think America wouldn't have had, gone through these changes or tried to improve itself from these things. What do you mean that you feel indifferent about it now? Do you feel maybe like his legacy or the things he fought for were hijacked, or it's just been modified, or
Well,
are you upset that people approve of him now, or that maybe things are a little better? I don't know. What do you mean
well,
you're indifferent about it?
that's an excellent
I didn't mean
question.
to take over, but I'm curious.
No, it's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked because I'm clued in
Yeah.
on a little something, something. I was
Yeah.
a Malcolm X guy. I am a Malcolm X guy,
Right.
right? So back then, even you had the black and white thing going on, but in the black community, you had Malcolm X and you had Martin Luther King Jr. All right, two black
Right.
men on opposite sides of the spectrum as well. All right, so in a lot of ways, it was kind of like a Mexican standoff, no pun intended.
Right. Right.
But you got white America, black America, all right. But within black America, you have the Nation of Islam, all right, and you got Martin Luther King, who obviously had a different viewpoint. Now, let me dig a little bit deeper here, all right.
Sure.
And I don't know if you know much about Malcolm X, and if our listeners don't, they may have a certain perception of Malcolm X, all right?
Yeah.
Because I did when I was younger, because I was taught in school that Malcolm X was a bad person, all right? That he preached violence and hatred, while Dr. Martin Luther King preached unity and love. Come to find out, that was not the case, all right? All right. Malcolm X was probably one of the most interesting, most evolved people to ever walk the face of the earth. And we're talking about, I'm not going to get into a deep diatribe when it comes to Malcolm X, so stop me anytime you like, but I'm going to give just a brief history lesson here. Malcolm X,
Go ahead.
aka Malcolm Little, all right, when he was a pimp and a hustler and a thief, all right, got busted, sent to prison, found the Nation of Islam, changed his name to Malcolm X when he got out of prison. All right, full-fledged Nation of Islam. All right. And there was a time when Martin was saying we need to love and cherish one another, whereas Malcolm was saying, yeah, we can love and cherish one another, but if you put your hand on me, I got the right to smack your ass. All right. He wasn't preaching violence, but he wasn't preaching turn the other cheek either. All right. Now fast forward a little bit, Malcolm X, being an evolved person, went on a pilgrimage to Mecca. All right.
Okay.
And lo and behold, he found out with his own two eyes that the Nation of Islam, the Muslim movement, included all races, all colors. He was shocked to see white Muslims, Latino Muslims, and not just black, angry, disenfranchised Muslims. And they were preaching love and peace and so on and so forth. So when he came back to America, he was a changed, evolved man. All right? And he stepped away from the Nation of Islam. And that is when he was killed, because he evolved. All right? Yeah. And that's what you want. Isn't it what we want here in America? For us to listen, learn from one another and evolve? Well, he did that, and it cost him his life. But what I was taught, all right, that Malcolm X was a bad person in the story. That's what I learned in school. Alberta Elementary School, Northside Junior High School, Northside High School. All right. So that's when I say indifferent, because I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, one of the greatest books I've ever read in my life, because his words seeing how this person evolved. All right. So there are black people like myself who do feel indifferent. Not that we disparage Martin Luther King Jr., but at the same time, there were two ideologies going on at the same time for Black America. Neither one of them was 100% correct, but then again, neither one of them was 100% wrong either. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I'm going to tell you that as a white person and as a non-Muslim and someone who,
Assalamu alaikum,
similar to you, probably has heard more negative than positive on Malcolm X, my thoughts on him are not as glowing. If we're going to discuss Martin Luther King, I think the things that people can gravitate to, no matter what color they are that he was a follower of Jesus, that he was trying to be nonviolent, even though I think that his views on capitalism and maybe some of his connections to communism, or his views on what he called Democrat socialism, were misplaced and can be provably shown that they don't work. It's the same stuff. It's the same stuff that I've seen all through history, not just American history. I think his heart was in a good place. And despite obvious, I think at one point, Coretta King, didn't they bomb their porch or something when he was away once?
Yes.
Or, they went through a lot of actual things. And the man was killed. He was assassinated. He was shot in the face.
Head blown off.
So, right. So, to have the guts, to have the guts to do that for that many years, and in the face of, like you said, it was a different time, is something I think most people can say. You can disagree with people, but you can see their heart, and you can also see the purpose, whether it was good or not. And I guess since I can't really, I have stories I can tell you where I felt slighted, or I felt like people did me wrong, or, I was judged or whatever else, but I wasn't 1955 Rosa Parks, Montgomery bus judged, and having to deal with all that stuff. Certainly I can say that, but most black people today weren't put in, or have not been subjected to that level either. That doesn't mean that there isn't still some ways to go. I think the popularity of him, or at least his being liked or well liked or thought of positively, I just think is a natural progression of how, as a nation, I feel, maybe you don't, we've certainly come a long way from 1950s Montgomery, Alabama. I just refuse to believe that we're still this horrible nation or whatever. I just refuse to believe it, and I can see it every day.
Hey, yo, Yo,
I'm not
America.
saying you do. I'm just saying I don't go
Now
down that path.
I'm gonna lean, way left on this one right quick.
Okay, sure.
All right,
Sure.
all right. America has never been a bad nation. Never will. Never has been. Never will be a bad nation. But it is a great nation that did a lot of bad shit. All right, and I think we're in a place now in 2025 where we're gonna sweep that shit under the rug and keep it there. All right, and to bring it up is seen as a negative. All right, now it's easy to love America. All right, for everything that it stands for and everything that it means in the world and what it means to its citizens. But at the same time, we can hate America at the same time for its flaws and the things that it did to Black America or non-white America. The two things can mutually exist. All right, and it doesn't make you any less American because you want to you're okay with standing up and saying, "Hey, what happened in the past is fucked up." All right, and it still needs to be reckoned with. It still needs to be talked about. It still needs to be shared for our future generations, and not subject ourselves to a fallacy that because it's in the past, it don't matter no more. When the shit does matter. I love America. All right. All right. I served in the nation's military I would have gladly given my life for America when I was in the military. I would gladly give my life today. All right. For America, for you, and for everybody out here listening. But at the same time, you got to have the courage and the patriotism to say, yo, we did some fucked up shit. All right. And we have to acknowledge that.
You want me to respond to that
Do
in
your
some
thing,
way?
brother.
Well, again, I'm not Black, so I don't have what seems to be this never-ending chip on my shoulder about things that occurred well before me. I haven't lived your life. It does get tiring to be assumed that I think a certain way or that because of my whiteness, I just have all these inherent advantages and I have all these inherent flaws that I just are born with. It almost sounds like the antithesis of Martin Luther King. We're never going to get past it if we keep picking scabs, if we keep lighting fires over and over again instead of planting trees. I just would rather us start planting trees rather than burning the same forest down over and over. I mean, that's what it feels like. And after this many years, I've seen these cycles come and go. And for the most part, it seems to me that the anger and the fomenting of this constant beating that, hey, racism's here, it's horrible, America's got all these suck things that it's done, let's just keep bringing it up, there's political reasons behind that most of the time, because if people could supplant themselves now back to those days and just see how much different it is, or at least they would admit it to themselves, I think that they could start saying, there's a little healing here, there's a little bit of growth, there's a little bit of change. I don't know what the percentage is now of interracial marriages and stuff that might have been unheard of or unthought of. I mean, we just, when I was in dental school, this was when I was in dental school. God, how long ago was that? Early 90s, like 1991 or something. We had Black students in there. I never thought, why are they here? Or, this is weird. Or, it just never, that was that long ago. And it never really occurred to me. I didn't sit there and go, I don't want to go to school with them or, and I just, it's every facet of my life, it just seems like it's this never ending thing that what would be nice is to acknowledge that America has these flaws. I don't know that we're trying to not remember it or not know about it, but we don't need to run each other into the ground or run each other's races into the ground whenever most people today literally had nothing to do with any of that. And I think even Black people, or at least a portion of them, are just kind of tired of it too. But I don't want to speak for them. It just seems to me from the surface, based on voting, and when you start reading more things. Now there are folks that they just have it in them. They're never going to let it go. When I say let it go, they're just going to. That's just, it drives them. It's the thing that they think about constantly, and it goes through that filter every day. They see the world, America, through this lens, and I wish I could remove it, or at least provide them another pair of glasses every now and then so they could have some peace. But that dream that he had in that way, I guess it hasn't been fulfilled, because there are still people that do see each other in these lenses. And, I don't know that you can totally ever remove that. And I don't think it's totally an American thing either. I mean, you go to other nations and there's definitely racism. There's definitely, sometimes it's reverse. You don't want to be the white guy there, I mean, that kind of thing. Or you don't want to be the Christian that's walking around in certain places in Syria right now. They'll kill you. Just kill you dead right there, and not in, not in a good way. So the world in many ways is just a rough place. And I think America, because we're here, we're comfortable, we have the ability to talk to each other, and we have the ability to give our opinions freely. Maybe there's a lot of things worth fighting for that are about planting trees and not burning down the forest, I guess is best. That's the only way I could put it. But if it feels like that white people have co-opted, that or whatever, or we've changed his message, to try to stop some sort of fight that's still going on, I don't feel that way. But I mean, perhaps black people do. I feel more strongly about Martin Luther King's methods, or his nonviolent, more Christian way of doing things. But there are people that, it's time to pick up the guns. It's time to go burn down half of Los Angeles. It's time to go, in 12 cities, let's just start looting and breaking things. I don't think that's the answer. But, and sometimes that stuff is not even organic. It's pushed. But, that's coming from a white guy. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question for you, but I still think he is relevant. I still think that the ideas that he had are positive, and all races here can gravitate to that. I'm not sure that all races are going to gravitate towards some other black theologist or black leader, the way that they have tried to push their fight. And that's okay. It's because, I mean, they're not going to get behind certain what they would call white leaders or capitalism. Perhaps that's just not the way it goes for some people. So, like I said, my hangups with MLK were more about his views on, how to fix poverty and how to fix some of these inequalities. But I wasn't back then, and it's hard to say. I would say to you that if I grew up in the same family as my mom and didn't get away from all that like my mom did, I don't think I would like myself as a person. I've avoided a lot of people on that side of my family, not just, racist stuff, just their whole mindset and the way that they were brought up. But in many ways, we are victims. I shouldn't say victims, but we are brought up where we're brought up. And we either sometimes you're luck of the draw, and you have to get beyond it and learn, hopefully you learn how to get past that or whatever. And that includes, your income. It includes, all kinds of things. But anyway, that's it.
we are all products of our environment, whatever environment that might
be.
For better or for worse, we are products of our environment. All right.
And it explains a lot of times why, why people go to certain. Go ahead.
I think I have no proof, of course, but my perception is that maybe, in white communities or whatever, Martin Luther King is probably just, discussed at a surface level, but as far as getting right, taking a deep dive into what his ideologies were and the things that he went through, so on and so forth, that may be, may not be the order of the day. That being said, it takes me to topic number 2. Now, the format of the show is, what we've agreed to do is, Mike has 2 topics, I have 2 topics, 15 minutes apiece. We're trying to have a little fun at the same time while sharing our views. My view being the right view, his view being the wrong view. You
Well,
like how I
some
did
people
that, man?
might agree
You
with
like how I
you on
did that?
that are listening. We'll see.
All right. So, topic number 2 that I'd like to discuss with you. All right. And
Sure.
once again, looking through the lens of 2025. All right. And all the
Okay.
things that have happened over the last, few weeks, so on and so forth. It made me think about something.
Okay.
Um, why does why how can I put this? Why don't poor
Sure.
people matter in America? Why is being disadvantaged, you know, or less than when it comes to maybe resources or finances looked upon the way that it is?
Why don't poor people matter?
Yes.
Define
In
poor people.
America, poor people do not fucking matter.
Well, define what poor people are. What is that?
People who don't have the type of resources that middle class America or even that the average American enjoys. Food,
Are-
shelter, clothing, all right, basic medical care, all right, just the basic things that you need to survive. And just to quantify things, I'm not talking about handouts. I'm not talking about welfare programs. I'm not talking about panhandling. I'm talking about basic dignity. All right, and I'll be the first to say, and I hate this. One thing I can never do to myself is lie to myself. All right,
Okay.
I am guilty of it myself. I'm guilty of looking down my nose if I'm downtown Atlanta, all right, and I'm driving through Skid Row. I mean, looking down my nose. All right, and that's one of the things that made me think about it because just a few days ago, just this past Sunday, in fact, okay, I'm driving downtown Atlanta, driving through Skid Row, whatever. You know what I mean? And and I stop at the stoplight or whatever, and of course you got people wanting, they got signs and everything, and they come out and try to get you to give them money, so on and so forth. And usually, if I got cash in the car, a dollar or two, a change, so on and so forth, I'll give them something. You know what I mean? But but now we've moved to a cashless society, so I don't carry cash no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was thinking to myself, I can't help this person. I can't cash app them. You know what I mean? And I'm like, they're even more fucked now than ever because we're cashless. And I was thinking to myself, man, why is this happening? It don't have to happen.
Well, you want me to say something here?
Do you think, man?
Well, that's a awkward way of putting it. Why don't they matter? Um, let me say it to you this way. There's been many times in my life where I've been confronted with what I call unfixable or unwinnable or unsolvable issues. I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but or about it. But when I watched my dad decline from dementia to Alzheimer's, he just his brain, and there was just nothing I could do about it. And you're trying everything, and you're going through all the the medical stuff, and just reading this, you just everything. And in the end, you come to the realization that you can't do anything more, or this is something that's beyond it. It's not a me causing it problem. What can I do about it? Well, I mean, how involved do you want to get? Maybe us talking about this, somebody tomorrow might hand somebody a $20 bill that they wouldn't have normally done it. And if you do that, God bless you. But you can't take, I don't know if this is how you're feeling, so I'm just saying this, but I felt this way before many times where I just feel helpless, or this is such a huge thing that it just seems unfixable. Poverty or poor people, poverty, it's the norm. honestly, around the world, and especially, but when I say relatively, this is just me talking, relatively new history. Most people
Let's
grew
keep
up
it in
or
America,
lived in,
though. The topic is America. Let's
well,
keep it
in
in America.
America, I feel like in America, if you're going to be poor or disparaged, economically, that's where you want to be. We've spent $30 trillion in the last, I don't know how many, whatever years. I'll put it to you this way: 4% of every dollar has gone towards poverty since 1965. So, do you want to be 8%? How much more? It seems like that it's just one of these things where you're not going to have complete equality in outcomes, and there's a million reasons for it. You can shake your head, but there's no law, there's no nothing you're going to create that's going to make everybody have the same outcome. If you took everybody's money, put it in a pot, divided it all out in 20 years, there would still be this change where everybody ends up, some are going to get here, some are going to go there. And you know what? That's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's just not. And so I've learned how to make peace with what I can do, what I can help with, and what is my fault and what isn't my fault. So I don't know if this is how you were wanting to go with this. I didn't know if you were wanting to take it into some other thing, but why don't they matter is a weird way to put that. I walk by 2 or 3 every day going to my car. I'm in downtown Macon. So most of what I would call, the urban outdoorsmen, the people living out here that are poor, like you're talking about Skid Row there or whatever, there's no particular color. There's all different colors of them. And there's ladies, men. A lot of them seem to be, I would say, not the majority of them, at least here. I don't know what you mean by poor people, but these folks that are on the street type, they've got mental problems. They're incapable of being of performing, in a society in a way where they would be productive and produce their own money or whatever. And that is a hard thing to accept, because what do you do about it? I mean, do you let more and more and more come on the street? Or as the mayor here, do you take them to another city and then clean your street? But then you've just moved the problem from here to here. It's not my problem anymore. It's Atlanta's problem now. We brought them up to DeKalb County and dropped them off, in Midtown. So I don't know. I can tell you right now, I feel like I'm a smart guy and intelligent in many ways, and in other ways, I don't have a clue. But I can tell you this: I don't feel like Americans aren't givers. I don't feel like Americans don't. We are taxed. We churches give money. There's people that volunteer. Maybe you have thoughts on why there's this. What is it you feel like we're not doing enough of, or whatever? And maybe your thoughts or your suggestions or something people can gravitate to. I do feel like that America, if you're going to be trying to, if you're going to be on the low end of the spectrum, we aren't like, Honduras poor here or whatever. I mean, there are levels to this. And again, if you could be there and live like that, or you're taken out of your relatively comfortable lives and are put somewhere like that where you don't even have heating and air and no electricity and things like that. But, so the only people I can compare to that are the people that are on the street here. But if someone's in Section 8 housing here, but they've got heating and air, they've got their kids go to school, they do have medical. Maybe it's not top of the line medical, but you go into the hospital right over here. I've had to go 2 or 3 times over the last year for various reasons, not for me personally, but, for my kids and this and that. And, it's filled with people in there who have no money. I mean, they literally are in line filling out paperwork, or they're just going in there. So, and I have friends who work in the ER and whatnot, so they tell me, the situation. So I don't know how to respond to why don't they matter.
That was the question.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to answer. I'm not sure why don't you think they matter? It's human nature to see someone who's not in the same level as, maybe you've got a better life than them. Maybe you achieved more or whatever. And so there's this slight guilt whenever you're around someone like that who clearly doesn't live the same. I just got back from Mexico, but could I have done that 20 years? I mean, I feel like that. Have I earned it or worked for it? I don't feel the guilt, and I'm not going to beat myself up about things that I just can't control. I mean, you can get so guilty with stuff like this or feel so guilty about it that you could give away all your money. I mean, there are people that have probably more money than they know what to do with. And I would suggest to you that a lot of those people probably do a lot with their money that you don't know about, to try to help and do things and raise money. Sometimes they do it for the adulation. Look at me. I just gave 100 million to blah, blah, blah. I'm a good guy. Others, you'll never know. You'll never know what they did, that they did that. I know several guys like that where I would bring their name up, but they wouldn't want me to. And there are people like that, most of them through church and stuff like that. But I think that they matter. I can't save the world. And there's billions of us. And, it would be nice to just open all of our doors up and have them all come in and share everything. But unfortunately, that's not how it works. It sounds good on paper, but I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one, Alonzo. Interestingly, Martin Luther King, that was one of his things, is trying to, help with poverty. It wasn't just black poverty, but obviously, the disparage, economic situations for black Americans versus white Americans was a big deal for him. And economic justice and all these things have kind of carried on till today. And the rejection of capitalism and some of the things that I feel like would work better than socialism and things like that goes all the way back to that.
Well, I'm gonna clue you in a little something that you might not be aware of. All right. For one, this is not a black or white question.
I got you.
All right. Once again, it's a poor
It's
people.
just cool we can tie it into that,
Yeah. But I'm clue you in though. There are more poor white people in America than poor black people.
Yeah, but sheer numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. But let the narrative tell it. When you think poor people, you think black or you think non-white. That's where the mind gravitates to non-white.
Well, I think that politically people will bring up the fact that if you look at the number of population, although they have a higher number by percentage of their own population that are, and so it depends on which way you're trying to do something politically. I don't have an agenda on it. You're poor or you're not. To me, poverty is the great equalizer. It don't care. But you don't care what color you are.
But you said it yourself. You might not have heard yourself, but you said black people. All right, you said it.
No, I'm just saying with Martin Luther King, that was one of the things.
But once again, even back then in the 1960s, 1950s, there were still more poor white people than poor black people. It's always been that way in America, and it always will be. Why? Because majority white. I mean, black America is what? 16, 17, 18% of the population?
13 to 14.
Okay, 13%, 13, 14% of the population.
Yeah.
Obviously Latinos less than that, and Asians, so on and so forth, Indians, so on and so forth, less than that. So we all know that 70+% of the population is white. Therefore, just by the law of large numbers, there are more white poor folks than black or non-white poor folk. But when you hear the word poor people, your mind gravitates towards the minorities and not towards the majority. All right. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why poor people don't matter. All right. It's a mindset, in my opinion. All right. All right. Because once again, white America, when you say white America, it is viewed through a prism of middle class, 2 cars, house, picket fence, nuclear family, father, mother, son, daughter, dog. All right. Regardless of the amount of income or financial security, so on and so forth, that is the image that is projected when you think about white America. Suburbs, go to college, get married, have kids, 401k, retire to the to the mountains, die.
Okay.
All right. But when you think poor people, you thinking black folks living in the projects, on drugs, pimps, hoes, welfare recipients, so on and so forth. Indians on the reservation, Latino people in the barrio. All right. Now the one exception would be like the Asians, because they're like math whizzes and all that kind of stuff. You see them, in a different light. All right. All right. Nobody ever says, look at somebody Asian. Oh, damn, they poor. You know what I mean? You ever seen a poor Asian person or a poor Indian person? I don't know. Oh, I like one, maybe not Native American, but I'm saying like Indian with a turban. But the point that, and that's kind of like the roundabout point that I'm making when I say why don't poor people matter? It's because the perception of poor people is somebody that's not white. Now, it's my belief that if the perception of poverty in America was white, we'd do something about it with the quickness. All right, it wouldn't be at the level that it is now. That's for damn certain. If the majority of if the perception of poverty in America had a white face on it, because we'd be damned if blonde-haired little Susie, you know what I mean, has to worry about where her next meal is coming from. We're gonna fix that shit, all right? But Tamika, you know what I mean, and Rontavious, fuck them. Good luck. Get off my doorstep. So that's when I say. So when I pose the question, why don't poor people matter in America? I think it's because the way that we are viewed in America. I could be wrong, but then again, I could be right, sir.
Well, I did a quick search because I didn't know. There's 345 million Americans, is what I'm reading now. Everybody always said
that's a lot of motherfuckers, man.
Yeah, and so based on these arbitrary numbers that the government picks every so often, that the poverty level is whatever it is, whatever they're doing it changes. Something like 37 millions live at the poverty line. So that's 11% of the population. So that's a fairly substantial number. And this is America, remember, we're not in Honduras. So there's 45 million black Americans. So that's 13%.
What's wrong with Honduras, man? You said Honduras twice. What's wrong with Honduras, man? What they do to you in Honduras?
Okay, let's go with Haiti. There's a lot of black people in Haiti.
But they eat cats, man. Oh, because they eat cats.
All right. I don't know. That's a pretty rough place to live. I wouldn't want to be there, no matter what color you are.
I've never been to Haiti. Oh, by the way, quick aside, man. Quick aside. It's not pronounced Haiti. It's pronounced Haiti. I don't know if you hear that or not.
Okay.
Haiti.
All right. Okay. Well, if I ever go there, I'll make sure to double check that.
Okay.
So black Americans are 45 million out of the 345. So that's 13 to 14%. And out of the 37 million in poverty, they are 8 million of it. So that's something like 24%. So even though they're only 13% of the population, they're 24% of what they're classifying as poverty. So
you're making my point.
The only reason I brought all that up is that I'm not doing it, but politicians a lot of times will push this very thing.
You just made my point, son.
Black Americans are poorer, and it must be racism, and it must be that America hates black people, and that's why they're poor. Instead of going into, which is a much more difficult discussion as to why those numbers are what they are. But
so let me ask you this right quick, man. So when you hear the word poverty or poor people, what's the image that you see in your mind?
I guess someone who doesn't have a car, the power's out, their clothes are tattered, that sort of thing. I mean, what poverty is a word that I don't think most Americans live in. What my visual of poverty is, but compared to me and compared to you, obviously there are levels. Let me put it to you this way as well. There's a farmer in Utah. Makes $300,000 a year. He's got a big farm. He's got 5 kids, tractors, all that stuff. That's it. Actually, let's just say 500,000 a year he makes. Okay. Is that a lot of money? Sounds like a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you got a legal paralegal in New York City that makes $400,000 a year. Now, which one of them is really rich, and which one of them? I mean, it matters where you are. It matters the costs of things around you. So to say that I'm in poverty here versus, or I'm wealthy here versus wealthy there, it's just, we've constructed these numbers and these visuals, like you're saying, and all this, but most of this is all constructs by people who are trying to fix things and manage things and government things and legislate things. Whenever we're not the same, we're not in the same situations, they're not the same circumstances. And you can be a millionaire this year and be dirt poor, and the reverse. And you can do that in America much better than in other places. So that's why I say in America, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be poor in America either. But we're having to compare poverty. I don't know. If you're saying let's just talk about America, then if you feel like that there's some intrinsic systemic thing that is going to cause more Black Americans to be in poverty here, and that the efforts to reverse that or fix that are systemically, there's just, we're not going to do as much because in our minds we see only poverty with Black people. I can't sit here and agree with you on that, but I mean, that's your view on it, and maybe you have good reasons to believe that. Again, it's a lot more complex as to why certain cultures or certain people are in situations that they are in. I mean, where are most of the Black poor people at? I don't know. Are they all in like inner city, or are they all in rural? I really actually don't know. And if they are in inner city, then why is that? This is something I didn't sit down and do a lot of studying on. But for me, if I was going to try to fix a problem, it would be good to have that data and figure out what's going on and try to be as pulled away from the skin color thing as possible so you can get to it. But then it's just hard to have these conversations about why things end up like they are without people going towards the political things. And let's be frank, man. Government is not always the best answer to solve these things. A lot of times people on the outside tend to do better at fixing problems than handing it off to the city council or this particular group. And just because this particular group is quote unquote pro-Black doesn't always mean they have the best agenda, or they may be making money off of it, or getting grants or whatever else might be what their real agenda is. You pick the group, and there's going to be people that are going to be for money for it. But anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm getting off on a tangent, but I have not turned off my humanity, but there's a point where I know that the problem is bigger than me, and I'm not adding to it, and I can only do so much. So I can't bog myself down or let people spike me in the brain like I'm a bad person or something because I've done well for myself. And I think we all do it. If you have the money, maybe you've had a good week, maybe you got an extra this or that, you slap down an extra tip or whatever. Or you, like you said, you walk by somebody over there, and I'm not sure what street you're walking down in DeKalb County, but hits you that day. Gosh, I really want to help this person out. Well, man, God bless you. If that's the level of you can do, that's the level you can do. If you feel like what it sounds like you said, that poverty is mentally more people think that it's Black people, and so therefore we're not going to really try to do much more about it. I just don't think that's true. But I mean, what am I going to say? There's a lot of money being spent for poverty and for people that are on entitlements and welfare and things like that. Tremendous amount. In fact, the nation's going broke doing a lot of that stuff, and it can't keep doing that. But we'll find that out later. I think it'll happen in our lifetimes. We're going to have some real big problems. I know our kids are. And I'm not looking forward to that at all.
You danced around the point, but you made the point, but you danced around it at the same time. And like I said, the point of that particular question, once again, is why don't poor people matter? And I say poor people don't matter because the face of poor people in America is not a white face. And if it was a white face, then it would matter immensely. Okay, so that is kind of where where that came from.
All right, I'll reply with this last thing. And again, sounds like I hate some of my family, and I don't. I just know that they grew up, and that's where they are. There's plenty of white poor people in South Carolina, where my mom grew up, who would hear you say that and would probably go, "Screw that guy." But anyway, they're out there. Trust me.
Screw them back.
There's poor white folks out there. Trust me.
Oh, I know. Absolutely.
And they want help, and they want, and they some of them deserve it, and some of them don't. So go ahead.
I think everybody deserves human dignity, if nothing else.
One of the things that obviously you sort of danced around it also was the inauguration. Trump came in. One of the things that he tried to do in his first term was to deal with this birthright citizenship issue, which for many people, Trump's view on immigration or illegal immigration or the constant flow of non-citizens into the nation and how that affects us is a big deal. And I think it was actually one of the things that probably helped with his election. So you may not agree with it, but I think the average voter, or at least a plurality of them, probably did. I'm curious your views on it, because and the other reason I thought it would be a good subject, and we don't have to spend a lot of time in it, is because really they tie this birthright citizenship thing into the 14th Amendment. And if people out there that are listening don't know what the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendments were, we went through a civil war. The Civil War wasn't completely about slavery, but obviously a big part of it was. And I can tell you that we passed 3 amendments after Civil War. So it must have been something, a big deal. The 13th Amendment was to outlaw slavery, completely outlaw it. So, I mean, that was obviously a big one. 14th Amendment was to confer citizen status to black people who were here. They're not going to get back on a boat and go anywhere else. And even if they could, where would they go? All they've known is being Americans. And so we're conferring, citizen status. That was the 14th Amendment. The 15th Amendment was to prohibit denying them, voting rights based on color, race, and the fact that they were slaves. So, well, you're a slave, you don't get to vote. Obviously, not perfect the way all that was set up. You had the Dred Scott stuff before that, all these things, but
1/6 of a person
and all that, right? So it wasn't perfect. But bottom line was the 14th Amendment. To me, it was only for making sure that the people here were it put in writing so that there was no question about it. Black people now are citizens of the United States. So what has happened, and unfortunately, it's been used. I don't know if I have to find the actual statement or whatever, but all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. And no state should deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. What has been done is, they twist this into gay rights, marriage rights, equality of all kinds, fat people on an airplane. I mean, it's been hijacked from what the original intention was. But let's just focus on the naturalized in the United States, subject to the jurisdiction. What I'm curious is your view on this. This is what's happening, Alonzo. A woman, there was actually a business for this called birth tourism, where people were paying from China, sometimes Mexico, but it's not just Mexico, but people come over here, have their child here on American soil, and as soon as they have the baby here, that child is an American citizen. Just simply because you're here. You could have been, you're born from 2 Chinese parents, but you're on American soil, so that baby is now an American citizen. Or as soon as you come across the border and you're pregnant, you have the baby on American soil, boom, American citizen. And do you agree with that? I'm not saying you're wrong in your thoughts. I'm curious. And why do you think that would make you an American citizen? For instance, let's say that you went to Mexico with me. I'm just going to throw this out there. And you came across this hot señorita, sitting on the beach there, whatever, and you kind of like her. And you go, gosh, man, I really like this one, Mike.
What's her name?
Bring her home. Let's call her Chiquita. I don't know. It's a good name. I don't know. Why don't you come up with a name? I don't know. It's your girl. Anyway, you're going to bring her home. And, she comes to America and you think, man, this is the one, man. And I really want her to become an American citizen. And so you go through the whole process, which is like most government things, it's drawn out, it's annoying, it's not streamlined. Some of that is on purpose, some of it's not, some of it's just government. But, you want people to become naturalized and love America and understand it, know the laws. And so you do this, which could take a year and a half or more. And you and Chiquita are happy now, and she's an American citizen. Or there's some other person just comes across the border, has their baby, that baby's an American citizen, just like that. From Mexican or whatever, Chinese parents, whatever. So have you thought about this? Do you agree with it? The reason that Trump feels like he can reverse this, or at least is because the precedent was this case back, I don't remember, it's 1800s or 1900s or whatever, where this guy, he was Chinese, he and his parents lived here. They had lived here for years, and he was born here.
What's his name?
Something Wu. I'd have to look it up. Oh man, Wong Kim Ark. Sorry, not Wu. Wong Kim Ark. He was born in 1873, San Francisco. Mother and father were persons of Chinese descent. They were subjects of the Emperor of China, but they had been here. They weren't claiming to be American citizens, but because this guy had lived here he lived here pretty much until he was 17. Then they had left. The parents left. He had a job on his own and went to go visit them, and then came back, and they let him back in. And then he left again at 21 to visit his family. And then when he came back the second time, they held him and said, hey, no, you're not a citizen, So then this went to the Supreme Court, and I'm going to summarize it, but basically the way the justices saw it was that because he had been here all those years and had lived here and worked here pretty much till adulthood, they felt like that his allegiance to the United States, there was an allegiance there, and he kept coming back, and he had property as well. He had stuff here. So the difference between that's the case everybody points to say, well, see, it's already been settled. But what's being, and Trump's already done it. He's already said, if you come across the border and have a baby, your baby's not a citizen. And the reason he's saying is nobody's ever actually adjudicated that situation. They just have taken that other situation, which is someone who's already been here for years, worked here for years. I think I'm more sympathetic to that. A family, maybe they did come over illegally and they've been here 20 years. Maybe they've been here longer. They've had kids here. They've raised them. They've gone to school. And then I'm going to come up and go, hey, you got to go. I don't think that's what Trump wants to do, nor what most Americans want to happen. But there's a point where this endless flow coming in, and then all of a sudden you have access to medical, you have access to all the entitlements immediately. There's what they call, you can bring in more families after a certain, the rest of the family suddenly becomes American. So what's your views on that? I mean, do you just because it's Trump doing it, maybe you hate it and you're going to always hate everything he does. But I think he's not the first person to bring this up. I think he's just the first person who's actually taken action on it. And I'll be frank with you. I support the idea, not because it's Trump, but I support the idea that just because you flew over here on an airplane, you're at LAX, you have your baby in the hospital that wasn't planned, that kid's not a citizen. And the fact that people are using birth tourism simply to abuse our entitlements and abuse what really hasn't been decided in the courts. This is a different situation. It's not the same. And I frankly do think that there's a chance that this could actually hold in the Supreme Court because they're going to challenge it. The Democrat Party, or the people that want endless immigration, I should say. I don't say the whole party, but it seems to be the party that pushes it. They just want endless influx of illegals. They're not going to, they want that for a lot of different reasons. We can go into that in a different show, but they're going to fight this. They want non-citizens to be able to come over here, have babies, and instantly have that be an American citizen. So anyway, I set that up. I've got a little bit of the background for it. This is happening. It's already happened. And of course, this is something that's going to be in the news. You're going to see it. So what do you think?
First and foremost, I'm against any law, rule, or anything that breaks up a family, period. I don't care what the circumstance is. I'm 100% against that. Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So be clear about that part, if nothing else.
Okay.
All right. Now, that being said, if you're 9 months pregnant, you know what I mean, and you're due, you due next week, and you come to America and you have the baby, that's one
Yep.
thing. That's one thing.
Okay.
All right. But if you know if you're 7 months pregnant, you come over here for whatever reason. I mean, the reason don't really matter. All right. And you have your baby here. I don't see anything against it. I don't. I mean, um,
Non-citizen.
I think everything
Go.
has a caveat of some sort. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, the same thing could be said in the reverse. You know, if you're an American and you're overseas, I mean, and you're in Japan and you're pregnant and and you have a baby, so on and so forth. I mean, and and they're like, get the fuck out. You can't be here. You know, that's just as wrong. You know what I mean? Debate. The baby didn't choose where it was going to be born. And sometimes because it's been this it's been this way. You say the 14th Amendment since what the 1800s.
Right.
I mean, sometimes
1866.
1866.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it has been this way for hundreds of years.
Yep.
Okay, and all of a sudden, it's an issue, and I don't think I think it's an issue because of the social and political climate. All right, when nobody pushing this issue, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, nobody was pushing this issue. It wasn't a hot button topic, but now all of a sudden it is. While you sit here with your Mexican hat on, so
Yeah.
I'm not for anything that breaks up the family, no matter what the situation is. If you have a baby here in America, maybe there can be some sort of caveat. Like I said, if you come over here and for the express purpose of just having a child on American soil,
Mhm.
all right, there should be some limitations to that. But if it's a circumstance outside of your control and it's not something um, um, pre-planned, something nefarious, you know, me personally, I don't have a problem with it. We got bigger fish to fry once again. And I think this is another example of how the new administration is going to pick on poor people. All right. Because my takeaway is that once again, the face of people, the kids getting born in America, okay, it has a face, it has a non-white face, and it has a face of probably people who are less fortunate than us coming over here trying to find a better life for their kid, so on and so forth. You know, so um, there has to be a point, man, and I probably not gonna live, be alive to see it. You probably won't be alive to see it, man. Where we gotta stop fucking punching down on one another, man. All right, all right. We're all citizens of this fucking planet,
Yeah.
no matter where you are. All right, we're all I'm gonna paraphrase JFK for a second here. We all breathe the same air, you know, and we all want to protect our children's future, and we're all mortal, you know, and there's something to be said for that, instead
Yep.
of putting ourselves in a position where everything is so goddamn adversarial. You know, it has to be, one way or the other, no matter what, and it's always got to favor the American way of life. It's got to favor America, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because we should put America first. I do believe in putting America first. All right. But that don't mean that everybody has to be last. All right. And
Okay.
and there are people far smarter than me who have the capacity to find a happy medium, that can be supportive based on the circumstance. But yeah, if you come over here and you're in your third trimester and the baby's hanging out of your gut, you know what I mean? And you come across the border, nah, that's one thing. That's one thing. There should be caveats, man. Like anything
Yeah,
else, man. Caveats.
I got you. I got you. Well, just to wrap that up, there are no other developed countries in Europe or anywhere that allow this. I mean, we're the only one that does it. I think Canada might be the other country that kind of is just open about this. And we might all breathe the same air, but we're not all footing the same bill on this. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road, because there isn't endless money and there isn't endless rooms in the hospital. It's just like I said before. It would be nice if we could have everything we want. Everybody gets everything. We all have the access to everything. But you just a completely wide open border, it's going to overrun everything. And then we all suffer. But what I'm getting at is there are situations where it's just clearly you got two people, maybe it's just one lady who's not a citizen, has nothing here, no ties to the nation, doesn't own anything. Like I said, I think I'm more sympathetic to maybe they all did come over 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but the guy's been working. His kids are going to school. They have another child. They have another child. Those types of situations, I think, I don't know what you think of Republicans or people that support certain things. We're not inhuman. We have families, kids. So it's these simple, obvious things. If a guy is on his third arrest and he's not supposed to be here, it's time to go home. It's time to get him out. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes and who fights it and how they frame it. But I'm framing it here for you exactly what it is. There is no precedent for this specific thing. And it seems to me that, and you said it best. I mean, you're over here, you're about to have your baby. Some of these people are doing it on purpose. You can't always prove that, but they have actually caught some of these birthing tourism people that were actually advertising and running it from the United States, which is, there wasn't much crackdown on that, but I'm sure that's going to be coming as well. So, if you're making money off these people on top of them, putting them here, and then they're going to be flooding our systems, and there just isn't unending money, and there just isn't unending space and unending, whatever, so can Americans give up more? Well, I don't know. Ask them. But when you start just forcing it on them, then they're going to fight back whenever there's elections or whatever else. People are going to react. You're going to get some pushback at some point, and including people that classically weren't for such and such party or weren't for such and such legislation. When it starts hitting home, and I hope it doesn't happen to us. Our kids are in the hospital or whatever, or they need to be seen and they just can't get to a room. And, it's stuff like that, or they're hit by a car or whatever. And that whole Lake and Riley thing went through pretty quick this week. The girl she was from Atlanta, or Athens, I should say. That law went right on through, and Democrats voted for it too, because they see the writing on the wall. There's a lot of Americans are angry about certain things, or at least they're supportive.
Do you think it would have been the same level of outcry if Miss Riley was black? Be honest, man.
I don't know. Impossible to answer. Do you want me to send you the number of black Americans who've had bad outcomes from illegals?
That wasn't the question.
I mean, well, maybe there's more. Would that surprise you? I mean, maybe I can bring that into the discussion. Would black people be more supportive if there was more black victims? Or does it matter what color the victim is?
Yeah, it does.
It sounds like it does to you, but to me, it doesn't. I think
it matters to America, because once again, if the death of Miss Riley, man, was tragic. Okay, and there's no justification for it. All right, all right. But I'm telling you now, if her name was Shaniqua Riley, it wouldn't have been in the news. It would not have been in the
Well,
news. But
I
when you
could
got
turn this
when you
around
got a
on.
white University of Georgia student, all right, then yeah, it made headlines and everybody wanted to act on it. All right. So I'm not, I'm not foolish enough, you know, to fool myself into thinking otherwise. Like, for example, Ahmaud Arbery. Now, if Hunter Lawrence was jogging through a black neighborhood and got shot down, it would have been a different outcry. Same difference. I mean, and that that's just a symptom. Okay.
Well, this is the same thing we go through. Let's just pick Chicago, since I always send you the stats once a
Yeah.
month. How many people are dead in Chicago
Yeah.
every freaking weekend?
Yeah.
Is it in the news? Are those not dead black men every weekend?
But once again,
Nobody
I'm
cares,
glad you brought that
right?
up because
Why don't they care?
it's not there's not an outcry.
Right.
There aren't politicians out there trying to enact laws and trying to make things happen. But at the
Why
same
not?
time, but like I said, if a bunch of white folks was getting killed every weekend in Chicago, believe you me, the National Guard would be on every street corner.
I bring it up. And why isn't the city doing anything about it? It's run by mostly a minority city council. I just looked a little while ago, the DeKalb County, who won all that, it's overwhelmingly majority black of the city council, whatever. If you run as a white guy in Atlanta and try that out. I think there's 2 dudes in the whole city council. And
That's
so
that's the point, man. That's the point. Because
but
even in the
why,
media,
why would
the things that happen in Chicago and anywhere else where there's proliferation of black people who are affected by it is not big news. Let that happen to white folks, man. Fox will be running a 24-hour special. What's wrong with America? We got to stop. Why are white folks dying in America?
well, if you feel that way, why aren't more black people, celebrities, more black voices
there would be
bringing it up?
there would be tanks in the streets. Okay. There would be tanks in the
just
streets.
think that's a cheap cop out. There should be more black voices in Chicago and all these places
There are
where
many
the real
black
carnage
voices
is going on. There just aren't.
Hey, I actually personally donate money to the movement in Chicago. There are boots on the ground fighting this every single day. But once again, it does not get but the publicity that it gets is negative publicity. Because those movements in Chicago to stop violence are not being publicized. All right. And that, once again, when it comes to that, if a white person picks up the torch, or somebody white that has influence picks up the torch, then things get moving. All right. Someone who is black and of influence pick up a torch, it'll get moving maybe an inch or so. But there won't be, we interrupt your program for this special report. We got such and such person on the corner here at Fox News in Chicago.
I think this could be a good show for the future. Maybe go into why certain things do take off and why certain things don't. I'll wrap up this whole thing by saying this.
Okay.
It sounds like we have enough internal issues where things are happening or aren't happening with our own citizens than to be injecting illegal citizens who have got a long record of committing crimes. And we shouldn't be fighting about not sending those folks at least home. In fact, I think most of the Trump deportations and whatnot is going to be folks who just came across and folks who have these long lists of illegal things. I would be shocked if they just start rounding up people who've been here 12. It's just not going to happen. But that's just me. We'll see. But we have enough of our own internal problems and issues or whatever to be injecting foreign people into the area who have no good intentions, have broken laws, and to be fighting about whether or not to send those people home is my view. And whether the victim was black, female, white, Chinese, but they were an American citizen, I think it's a good thing that Congress came together and said, hey, if you do these things and you've got you've got all these strikes, it's time to send them home or punish them in a way where they don't get out again. So that to me was a positive. I'm not going to, whether this turns into a racial thing for you, I can't stop it. That's not how I see it, but I can understand why you do. I do. And I just explained how the reverse of that can happen. Maybe you don't see that either, but it does happen. I think today's show had a really good mix of each of our backgrounds come into it. I didn't know what you were going to bring up.
Told you to trust me.
A poverty one, wow, okay, But I think that in many ways, this is what I want the show to be. And I do learn from you. And I didn't know your background on, you're reading Malcolm X or whatnot. I could see that. And that would be an interesting topic as well in the future, just so people can learn more. Because I think I would like to know more too. We need to do a show on Prince too, because I know you're a big fan of his. And I think he's one of the greatest musicians of all times.
You sure you want to open up Pandora's box, man? You sure you
I
want
to go into all the weird, all the everything. But
that'll be a 5-hour show, bro.
Sometimes the most interesting people have the most crazy lives and the most crazy backgrounds or whatever. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And who knows what hat I'll have on for that one or whatever. I hope everybody enjoyed this latest incarnation of our show. We try to do these, like I said, every week to 10 days, and we start getting better at it. We may do them more often. If you have ideas, by the way, send them in. Send them in if you have ideas or something you'd like to talk. Yeah. If you have ideas you want us to talk about. Since you started the show, I'm going to back away and we'll close it out.
I appreciate everybody for your comments, for your support. Make sure you subscribe, help us build the show up, and who knows how far it can go.
Yep.
No topic is off limits. It's all in good faith, and no hatred involved, so on and so forth. Even though Mike says a lot of things that I don't agree with, but I respect his right to have those opinions. All right. So that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. I'm black. He's white.
That's right.
I'm left and he's right.
Yeah, and I'm not changing colors. Even if I wanted to, couldn't do it, man.
Get a tan.
I tried to get a little darker in Mexico, but
you was out there.
My girl got tan,
trying to pick up some, trying to get darker.
Yeah, I got to bring you down there, man, and I will. Maybe we'll do some kind of little thing down there.
That's the deal. We'll do a show from the beach. How about that?
That's right. It'll be awesome, man.
Surrounded by federales.
Y'all try to have a good week. We'll see you next time. Peace out.
Later.